Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Tizzo. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Lake Elsinore, and I want to thank each and every one of you for giving up your middle of the week night to come out and hear what the city's doing to deal with the homeless issue. As everyone knows, or you wouldn't be here, is that the homeless issues affects everyone. Everyone has a bit in it in some way, and we really appreciate that folks care enough to come out and hear what we're doing. Just so you know that we are being videoed on Facebook Live, so passion is good, being nasty isn't. So we love passion, because that's what we are. We are Dream Extreme here. A lot of progress has been made, and so we're going to talk about that tonight. I'm extremely proud of our city and what we've done. A couple years ago, Councilwoman Natasha Johnson and I formed a task force to address the issue of homelessness. It's not the first time we had looked at homelessness in our city. We had looked at it in different ways before. We had done some different things, but it was the first time that we sort of as council sat down and put forth serious effort, assigning staff, committing staff, and then going after additional resources to really address the issue. Today, we're going to give you the latest updates about our efforts. We're going to talk about a grant that we received that's very exciting. The important part about the grant is it allows us not just to work with us in Lake Elsinore, but it also allows us to work with our partner, the City of Wildomar, and Kevin Jeffries is supervisor for the 1st District to deal with the unincorporated areas. There's a lot to be done. What I'd like to do now is just take a moment and introduce some of the folks that have come out with us. So with the City of Lake Elsinore, we have, as I mentioned, Councilwoman Natasha Johnson and Tim Sheridan. Also from our city, we have, I think just about my whole PSAC, Public Safety Commission, is here. I saw Jay, Roger, where you at, Roger? Roger's right there. Agnes, and she's part of our task force, Williams, and Kelly Hendry. Thank you guys for coming out. And then from the City of Wildomar, and I'm smiling a little bit because we have a little situation going with Reality Rally, and they've accepted the challenge, so we love that. So Councilwoman Bridget Moore and Council Member Joseph Morbito. Okay. A couple other folks. Let me see who I missed here. I don't want to miss anybody. In the back is Captain Lujan, our police chief. He's a police chief for Lake Elsinore, for the county, and for the City of Wildomar. So that's one effort all in one. Sergeant Warrington, devil dog extraordinaire. And Robert Glasser from the Sheriff's Department. So those are our teams. Also, I want to introduce our homeless task force, and we put together this task force, and we're the ones that sort of work on the issues, look at the grants, sort of do the planning for the city and how we move forward. So Aaron Petrov from the Social Work Action Group, Agnes that I mentioned, Desmond, is Desmond here? Robin Reed from Supervisor Washington's office. He normally has a representative here, whether it's Robin or someone else. Felicia, is Felicia here from the city? Thank you, and I forgot to introduce James Riley. He's going to kick me because he used to be our financial guy here. So, but thankfully he's sitting with somebody that I didn't forget. So, okay. So, and I think I got everybody. All right. So what I'm going to do now is, again, it's meant for you to. We want to give you an update. We want your passion. We want to move the city forward. What it's not meant to be tonight is for you to tell us where every homeless camp is or where everybody's hiding out, because we pretty much know where they are, and we're trying to solve that problem. If you have additional information, and I think Nicole will talk about our app, you can put that information on our app, and that's the best way for us because then we can track it. So with that, thank you for coming, and I'm going to turn it over to Nicole.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Nicole Daly. I'm assistant to the city manager here in the City of Lake Elsinore, and I'd like to just gauge kind of who's with us today. So I'd like to ask who here is from the City of Lake Elsinore? Okay. Wildomar? And do we have any county folks? Oh, yeah, you can raise your hand. I'm proud if we have some county people here. And how many of you have attended our community update meeting in December of 2017? Any of you come to that back then? Good, so there's a kind of a new crowd. As our council member Tisdale mentioned, we've had efforts in place for quite some time here in the city of Lake Elsinore. We've built quite a coalition of individuals and businesses and residents and nonprofits, all eager to be a part of the solution. And of course, there's the other side of this as well, which is really the impacts to our community. And so I'm just going to go over some things very briefly about the history of homelessness here in Lake Elsinore. I tried not to replicate some of the things we mentioned back in December, and that's one of the reasons why I asked you that, because I really wanted this meeting to be about what we've done since then and what's to come next. Because we have made progress, as Councilmember Tisdale mentioned, and there's some exciting things that are going to come next. And it's really creating progress and momentum for all of our communities here in Southwest Riverside County. And David Reyes just came in from SWAG, so I wanted him to be recognized there, so welcome, David. Okay, so I'm not going to go through all of these. As Brian mentioned, we've had efforts in place since all the way back to 2014. Most recently, since our last community update meeting, I want to highlight that we have hired a community services deputy, which was introduced, Robert Glasser. We've also started a street outreach team. So when we really got started on our homeless efforts, we didn't know what was the right first step, second, or third, and we started moving forward, having meetings, asking our community what they needed, and looking at what we had and what we didn't have. And something was very apparent to us. It was that we didn't have resources in our community to help those in need. And while we had a lot of groups and individuals eager to help, we didn't have a team, someone that could focus on really trying to get into our streets, talking to the homeless individuals, and coming up with ways to get them off the street. And so we were fortunate enough to find some funding through our partners, WRCOG, to be able to hire a street outreach team through the region and then locally. And that street outreach team is Social Work Action Group. And so today's meeting, you'll get to meet who they are and hear their story and what they've been doing in our community. Also, in June of 2018, we started to do more special enforcement by the police department. We have a problem-oriented policing team. We've changed that team recently, and they're very active in our community in addressing all quality of life issues, which include homelessness. And most recently, as Brian mentioned, is the award of a $1.5 million grant for the City of Lake Elsinore, City of Wildomar, and the county areas, and I'll share much more about that later. One of the things we've emphasized since we established our homeless task force is really trying to help our community understand and also learn from them is, what is the city's role in addressing homelessness? I think this is a really important question because homelessness is causing significant challenges for cities all across the country, not just here in California. And so it's really important for us to understand what our role is, what resources exist at the county level, the state level, and the federal level, and how we should be trying to augment and maximize the limited resources available, especially here in Southwest Riverside County. We definitely do not have the resources that other areas do. And so one of the three things that we see here in the City of Lake Elsinore in terms of our role is first, enforcement. We've said here in Lake Elsinore since we've started our efforts with homelessness that we want to be able to help. And that's why we hired a street outreach team, because we wanted to have the ability to actually try to help the homeless individuals that want help. But at the same time, we cannot allow illegal behavior to occur in our community. So we have to take both sides of this, and it's very important for us to enforce what we can as a city to protect the quality of life and the well-being of our overall community. But again, we do want to help, and that's our message to the homeless individuals in our community, is we are here to help. We're ready and eager to help you in any way possible, but we will not allow you to commit crimes or violations against our codes. We also can set policies and programs here in Lake Elsinore, and when I say this, I think one thing that's very important in terms of what a city can do for policies and programs is to support our nonprofit communities. We can establish policies, we can look at ways to support programs through funding or partnership, which we did with this grant that we'll share later, but we need to build up our nonprofit base here in Southwest Riverside County. We have a lot of fantastic faith-based organizations and community members that are eager to help, but unfortunately we just do not have very many nonprofits down in this part of Riverside County, and in fact all across Riverside County. We need more. And so us as cities should help to lift them up, support them how we can, and I think our relationship with SWAG demonstrates that, really how that can that can work together. Also, we have a role in engagement and education, which is what we're here for tonight. And I think one of the things that we always share at the county or the city in these efforts, and I really truly believe, and so does SWAG and our whole street outreach team, is here in our community, we have all the resources that we need to truly make a difference in homelessness. The challenge that people and communities face is that sometimes we're not rowing in the same direction. So when you have limited resources and folks are trying to do things in different ways and we're not all on the same page, we're not all trying to do the same things in similar ways, we're not maximizing what we're able to do in our communities. And what I mean by that is if you have one faith-based organization that freely gives out lunches in a park, for example, and we're telling the community, let's try to give a hand up, let's try to support these nonprofits by giving our time, money, and resources to them. And those are two different messages. And we're not supporting one another in that. And so we urge our community to try to join us and join our efforts, and we'll share more about that later. But I just kind of challenge the community to try to work together, not be divided, support one another, and support what we're trying to do here in Lake Elsinore, and together we'll be more successful. As mentioned, we set up a homeless task force, and I put check marks next to all these. These are most of our strategic objectives, and in one way or another, we've really accomplished a lot since May of 2017. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want to highlight the purpose of that task force. As Councilmember Tisdale mentioned, we do have 2 council members on that task force. We've now invited Wildomar to join us to that task force, and we're so grateful for their support and participation today because we do truly believe in this regional approach. This task force was established as kind of a sounding board, a place to go as a city and say, here's what we're thinking. What do you guys think? You guys are the experts. You represent the business community, the nonprofit community, or faith-based organizations. What are your thoughts about this program, this policy, this direction? And it's really allowed us a lot of opportunity to kind of vet ideas and really learn a lot about what we can do, and really makes us more competitive when we're looking at grant and looking for funding because of that collaboration and the ability to bring different groups together. So some of our latest successes that I'll just mention is, again, we have our street outreach team, and I just want to share our story briefly with all of you because I think it's a really good one. And I don't want to take all of SWAG's information and share it now, but Aaron came to me with another woman named Monica, his wife actually, in August of 2018, it's December of 2018, somewhere around there. Close enough, somewhere there. Maybe it was August 2017. It's gone by so fast. I don't even know how it's been years. But they came to me and they said, hey, we just set up this nonprofit. We're just getting started. And I said, well, okay, tell me about your nonprofit. You know, where are you located? What are you trying to do? And they started sharing things that I hadn't heard before from the nonprofit community that really intrigued me. Some of those things were, you know, that people had forgotten to go into the streets. You know, so many programs that government offer is, you know, come to me. Call me on the phone, or I can refer you to so-and-so, I can refer you to this service. But so many people had stopped going and just walking the streets of communities and talking to homeless individuals and really understanding who they are, what they need, and how to help them. And that really intrigued me because I thought, you're right. If you think about it, there's a lot of programs for low-income housing or housing subsidies, rental assistance, but the problem is folks that are on our streets, they're very hesitant to ask for help. Maybe they don't want help. And so those are the ones that are really, really hard to get off the street, and they take and need that one-on-one attention. And so when I started to talk to them, I thought, you know, maybe we should try to support this group, and they gratefully offered to come and offer us free services for a few months to just show us what they were able to do. We were instantly impressed, and today I think they're thriving, and they finally got a paycheck a couple of years later. But they put the work in and the effort, and every day they are in our communities trying very hard because they believe in what they're doing. And again, I don't think we could ask for a better nonprofit at this time, but that street outreach team has been critical to our success so far. As I mentioned, we've had proactive law enforcement and a new problem-oriented policing team in this last year. Those 2 officers are dedicated to this cause. We're very appreciative of our entire law enforcement team and their partnership with SWAG They work together closely, and you'll hear more from them shortly. As I mentioned, we've connected with more than 400 different individuals, businesses, faith-based groups. We continue to build our database of folks that want to be a part of the solution and want to understand where we're going and really support our homeless efforts. So we're appreciative for all of you and anyone listening at home, of course. And then we're tracking and reviewing our homeless population. We want to know who we have out there, what our needs are for our community. We've continued to participate in the point in time count. Our numbers from last January, January of 2018, were 78. This year we had even more volunteers than ever before, over 40 volunteers. And I think our numbers are going to be lower. And I think that's a testament to our efforts, but those won't be released till the end of the month. So we will share them when they are. And we're always seeking new ways to do things here in our local area and regionally. So I always welcome ideas from everybody that's here tonight. And again, as I mentioned, we're really starting to build momentum. Just briefly, as I mentioned, enforcement, we have continued our efforts with encampments. We're very proactive in this regard. You do need to report them, and we'll share where later. But since July of 2016, so several years now, almost several, over 100 transient camps have been located in our city. And as Councilmember Tisdale mentioned, pretty much there's not very many new or additional places to add to that. So we feel like we have a pretty decent understanding of where those locations are. The challenge is as soon as you clean one up, they come right back in a couple of days or weeks. And so it's just a constant revolving cleanup that occurs within our community. We've had over 300 transient camps that have been cleaned up, and it's cost us over $600,000. Now, a lot of this cost is borne by the property owners. They are asked to pay for that cost, especially if it's a private property and they're not maintaining that property. And we've collected over 500 tons of junk and debris in our community. And with that, I'm ready to turn it over to Robert, but I'll be back in a bit to tell you more about the grant. But again, I just want to thank all of you for being here tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, and it's good to see that you're still engaged and you're still part of our team. And with that, Robert.
Thank you, Paul. Which one switches?
Oh, I didn't use that.
Oh, okay, cool. Hi, Deputy Glasser, working with Lake Elsinore Police Department, the homeless outreach team. So just a little update what we're doing. Since the inception of the position, most of our time is spent developing relationships with those people. And what I mean by developing relationships is we're going out there and we're talking to them. We're introducing to who SWAG is and what they are doing. Talking with the community partners. We have some people in the audience here that have helped us immensely, along with SWAG, and we want to introduce them to the homeless people and say, these people are here to help you. We can help you. Give us the opportunity to help you. Tell us what you need. During that time, there was little or no enforcement. If the person had a felony warrant, they went to jail for the felony warrant. If they had a misdemeanor, we would cite them out there and try and get them the resources so that they would know that we are here to help. We are here to help, and we're going to continue to help you as much as we can. On average, it takes about 70 plus interactions with these people for them to just start to gain our trust. And it's hard. A lot of times we're dealing with mental health, we're dealing with non-trusting of police, we're dealing with non-trusting of family, we're dealing with just a person who really has hit rock bottom. And I'll never forget, last year we sat in here and we had someone come in and give us a talk on rock bottom. And he said, raise that bottom. Well, how do you raise that bottom? Well, it's going to be different for every person. And we took that approach that every person's needs are different. And rather than try and generalize the homeless, we looked at everybody as an individual and tried to see what needs would be, or what services would be best fit for them. And it was a continual reminder of help, but it didn't always work. We came up with some good ideas. We had the idea of doing faith-based outreach, where we brought all the churches together, and unfortunately, thinking that that might be a great idea, it didn't work. It didn't happen. We got pushback from the different faith-based organizations, and we scratched it. But it was something we had to try. We had to see if there was something that we could do to come up with something new and innovative. And then we had other county partners that we had barriers. The barriers of not following through in things that were said, dropping the ball on different things, and it happens. It just does. There's nothing you can do about that. But we're going to continue to persevere on that. So, change of direction now. Why? Well, we need to put pressure on those who are resistant. A lot of these guys and gals would tell the officers, oh, I'm already working with Robert, I'm already working with Swag, and they use an excuse not to go to jail. Well, the reality is there was no effort put forth by the subject. They didn't try. They used it, oh, I have Glasser's card, I have Swag's card, I'm meeting with them tomorrow. And I can tell you that David was at Farmer Boys this morning waiting for someone at 9 a.m. and I'm pretty sure they didn't show up. And after we talked to him yesterday, that I'll be there, there's no problem. And that's the common theme. That a lot of the people that say they want help, they really don't. They just don't want to go to jail. And the crimes are still being committed, and they need to go to jail for those crimes. It's not that they're going to be going to jail for being homeless. They're going to jail for the crimes associated with homelessness, the trespassing, the drugs, the stolen property. And we just need to continue to educate those affected that if someone is trespassing on your property, whether or not you have a 602 letter on file, we want you to press charges. I can't force them. We want to educate them that unless you are telling them you are not welcome here, I do not want you on my property, you are going to go to jail. To them, to the homeless person who continues to do this, there's no repercussion. So we want to educate everybody involved that if someone's there and you're calling us to come out, let's desire the prosecution so they go to jail. Push them to the point where they will either take the help or go somewhere else. There are places that are tolerant of it. We all read about it in the newspaper and hear about it on the news, but we're not going to be tolerant. We still need to address those issues. And we're still going to treat those people that are affected by homelessness with dignity and respect. The help is always there. In fact, the reason I was a couple minutes late walking in here, took someone to jail for panhandling and for being resistant, and myself and Sergeant Warrington must have told this guy 10, 12 times, tell us what you need. What kind of help do you want? How can we help you? If you want help, what do you need? And he was not hearing it. So we explained to him, if you come back here and you continue to break the law, continue to panhandle, you're going to go to jail. And every time we take you to jail, we're going to ask you again, what can we do to help you? How can we help you stop this cycle of homelessness? And like I said, we'll continue to do it every single time to every person we encounter. So what's the process? It's what we're talking about, what we're doing, but what's the process? Well, Darlene Minsk, she was the #1 priority in the county for housing. And we started this process last year. I've been dealing with Darlene for the last 5 years. She's 84 years old, she's a meth addict. She has dementia and other memory problems. How many times has she walked away? In fact, it came out that we had her in a house in San Jacinto, boarding care, and she walked away, and they found her here. She walked from here, from San Jacinto to Elsinore. I was getting ready to put out a sober alert out of the San Jacinto station because of her issues. She was a continual problem, and problem meaning that she has those barriers. She enjoyed living out on the street. She enjoyed the lifestyle that she had, but her age was getting to her. She had fallen, she had broken her hip. We brought it up to our monthly meeting, and she became the #1 priority. We've had a county housing partner that said, we'll find her housing, and for months, we'll find her housing, we'll find her housing, we'll find her housing. And unfortunately, they dropped the ball. And again, like I said, it happens. But we need to stay vigilant and hold those people accountable. And with the help of Swag, she went into housing yesterday. This has been an ongoing journey with her and her family to get her into that permanent supportive housing. It's not an overnight fix. It's not going to be an overnight fix, even for a veteran. But we need to continue to stay strong and continue to move forward and continue to offer the resources and find the resources for each and every person. Melissa Schofield, if you frequented the Lowe's shopping center, you would see Melissa out by the entrance. Melissa had a big open wound on her forehead. She was a heroin addict. When we started working with her last year, Swag did. She dragged her feet on bringing paperwork. She dragged her feet on meeting with them. She ended up going to jail multiple times for panhandling and for warrants because she'd get arrested, get cited out, and never show up to court. So it was a continual process over and over and over again. But we continued to stay working with her. We talked to her. We met with her. And when Swag finally got a hold of her and said, we have housing, we have this, we have what you need, she finally took it. And I want to say it was a few months, 5 or 6 months process. And now, I saw her yesterday. She is a completely different person. Her wound is healed. She has no more abscesses on her arms. She is in a detox program. She's healthy. She told me yesterday, she's like, I forgot what it was like to have a warm shower. I forgot what it was like to sleep in a bed. She has no desire to go back to her old life, but is very realistic and honest and says, I need support. I need to make sure that I'm being held accountable because it is a struggle. Because for so long, that is all she knew. She told me, which I thought was the greatest victory, is that she goes, I talked to my daughter. She goes, I haven't talked to my daughter in years, and I talked to my daughter. She goes, well, it was a text, but we talked back and forth, and she sent me a picture of her. This is someone who has alienated her family for so long, and to hear that's a success. There's no doubt about it, how you look at it. She is a prime example of what this program is doing and how it's supposed to work. And that's it. And that's where we're going, and that's what we're doing from now on. Aaron?
Now Aaron Petrov from Social Work Action Group, and I'm sure he'll introduce who our street outreach team is. And I forgot to mention, we're going to try and be done about 7 questions and answers at the end, but we'll try and get through the next few segments.
Hello, my name is Aaron Petrov, and this is my coworkers, David Reyes and Kendra Varela. Just part of our team. We have 8 team members. Come on up, please. I feel good. I feel comfortable, especially when David's next to me. He keeps us safe. So anyway, homelessness is complicated, and there's a lot of different aspects, and so we could easily go on a tangent, but kind of Nicole and Deputy Glasser hit on a lot of the key components that it takes concern and experience to deal with somebody who's so hard to deal with. So a little bit about our background. So we're a group of individuals. We all have different levels of governmental homeless experience, and what we saw, kind of like what Nicole talked about, was homelessness has increased over the recent years, last 10 years, 5 years, and there's programs that are continuing to evolve, and millions and millions of dollars across the country are getting put towards homelessness. But so the homeless spectrum, there's people who are at risk of homelessness, and there's a lot of people who are at risk. There's much more people at risk than people on the streets. But that group is lumped into the same group as somebody who's on the streets, who's mentally ill and addicted to substance. And as Nicole said, that person who's mentally ill and addicted to substance, oftentimes they may say they don't want help, but they really don't even know how to begin. So, that's an easy out. I don't want it, because it's so difficult to even try and comprehend, what the next step is. So dealing with that group, it's the smaller percentage, but they require much more work and effort. And so what we saw with different agencies we worked for was, again, when you have somebody coming through your door who says, you know what, I'm a little bit behind on my rent, and they're level-headed, they're smiling, they're nice to you, you want to help that person. But often we found ourselves driving past the people on the streets who would cuss us out and throw things at us, and I haven't been assaulted, but other team members have been assaulted. And so, it wasn't hard to see that, okay, so it's great, that people want to deal with at risk. That's what makes sense, but somebody has to focus on the people that don't make sense, the ones that take way more time and effort in many people's eyes to deal with, because they're the most complicated, because they're not cooperative. And so that's what we dedicated ourselves to, said, we're going to leave our government jobs with good pay and benefits to do this effort and not get paid well and not have benefits. But we're successful, and we've made good partners, and it really, it takes that partnership, absolutely. We have, our skill set, is part of the whole picture, and it takes the city cooperation, the city saying we want to be proactive, and we recognize this is the issue, and law enforcement, those are our partners in the streets everywhere we go. If we don't have law enforcement, Deputy Glasser knows everybody on the streets. He knows their background. He puts together all the pieces, that we can't even begin to look at. So it's both of us walking side by side with people to get them help. And so currently we work in the city of Chino, Lake Elsinore, Menifee, Paris, Wildomar, and Nicole will talk in a little bit about the HEAP funding, which will allow us to start to work in Temecula, Murrieta, and the unincorporated areas, as Mr. Tisdale said as well. So to piggyback off of what Deputy Glasser said, these are a couple of individuals. So Darlene, that's probably a more familiar picture. I'm pointing here. Darlene with the pink sunglasses. She was always stylish in the street. She never, you would rarely catch her not looking good. Not looking well dressed, I should say, because she was never doing good on the streets. And then that's Melissa Schofield, that Deputy Glasser mentioned. And so these are pictures of women who have been here for over 20 years, both of them in Lake Elsinore. Those are Lake Elsinore residents. They weren't going to go anywhere else. This is their home. It just happened to be on the streets for the last, Melissa, 5 years, I think, Deputy Glasser, and then, Darlene, 15. Off and on 15 years, something like that. It's hard to comprehend. But these are some of our numbers. Since March of last year, 63 total street exits. 18 of those have gone to a permanent housing situation. 23 emergency shelter with a form of transitional program to help them move on. Substance abuse is a big one, 14 people. 5 people went into a bridge transitional housing. It didn't ensure that it was permanent housing, but it was a program to get them to a permanent housing situation. And then trip home to family. So as Deputy Glasser said, these people alienate their families quite often. So part of the process is re-engaging the family, and sometimes it leads to that, which is often one of the best outcomes, is reconnecting them to their family. And so that's happened a few times. And when I sent this, some of the pictures got mixed up, but that's a picture of David with Melissa on day one. That was the day we picked her up from the streets, and she was, you could tell like the apprehension. She was scared, this wasn't, is this going to be for real, and you can't really see the wound, but like Deputy Glasser said, she had a huge wound for the last 8 months, 10 months. Talking to her, she would tell you, I'm going to kill myself. I'll do any drug, any alcohol. I'll do anything it takes with anybody to get those drugs. I'm killing myself. I know I am. And we couldn't break through. We'd have great conversations, spend a lot of time, but we couldn't get her into drug rehab, mental health counseling, none of that stuff. And so as Deputy Glasser mentioned, there's a theory, it's called housing first. And of course, sensically, if you see somebody who has a mental illness or a substance abuse, you want to connect them to that. But some people, like Melissa, she wasn't going to take it. But when we were able to offer her housing first, it was literally like we said, guess what? Your name was called. It's your time. And she went with us. And, and we're like, wow. And then as we're driving to Riverside, where we needed to do some paperwork at the county, she's talking about, okay, I'm going to go to the methadone clinic next, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And we're like, what in the world, right, David? Like, total 180. We're always optimistic that there's going to be that change, and this is one of those examples. So housing first, she really needed that housing opportunity, and then she's going to rebuild her life. So that's an awesome testimony to the work that, again, everybody in the city has done towards, working with Melissa. And these are some of the numbers. 121 individuals we've engaged, unduplicated individuals. So those are actual people on the streets that we've talked to here in the city of Lake Elsinore. And these are all self-reported numbers. If you ask my opinion, mental illness and substance abuse is much closer to 100% of both populations. We don't meet urban campers. These aren't people who are having fun outdoors. These are people who are deep in their addiction. I've never met a heroin addict who wasn't, extremely depressed. That's not a fun recreational drug. That's somebody who's trying to numb feelings, numb their past. And these numbers are very consistent across the cities we work in. It fluctuates just a little bit because it's self-reported, but transients, are somewhat transient, but most people stay in the community they associate with their home, where they grew up or where they've lived for the last 5 or 10 years. So you can see the numbers of people that identify as an Elsinore resident and number of people that have been homeless for a year or more. So again, we're dealing with people not newly homeless. These are people who are experiencing some serious mental illness and substance abuse. And then Wildomar, we work 6 hours a week in Wildomar, and that is going to increase here pretty soon. So the numbers aren't as significant, but the populations aren't as significant either. So we've had 26 street exits, and you can see the numbers: 6 people to permanent housing, emergency shelter, substance abuse. But I want to ask, has anybody seen that gentleman there, Brian? Has anybody from Wildomar recognized that person, right? He's been homeless. He reports for 15 years in Lake Elsinore, or excuse me, in Wildomar. And it was the same situation. I don't know how many times the three of us have talked to him, and you know what, it's like, I'm okay, I'm not really okay, but I'm okay. And so the strategy that we're always doing is gathering information and literally applying on behalf with consent of these people for all the programs possibly that can lead towards housing. And so this little random project came up that would allow for somebody who fits in his particular criteria to be moved in a motel until we can transition him into permanent housing. And that day that we went out there, our whole team went out there because we were so happy with Brian to be able to offer him this. Same thing, he said, let's go. And you probably can't see with his lime green shirt how dirty he was, but it was difficult to stand next to him. I don't think he had, we met him we talked to him about 6 weeks before that wearing the same shirt, so progressively it had gotten dirtier. But again, getting into his mindset, that was what he was waiting for the opportunity to go indoors. And so he's now in a boarding care because he's developmentally delayed, so he needs some additional help. But for him, what is he saying? It's the meals, it's the 3 square meals a day is that's it. He's never leaving. That's the difference for him, I would probably be the same way, but it's pretty awesome that all these attempts we've made, it was that housing first approach. And I'm not here to just yay housing first, but these are the people, these are chronically homeless people who are visible, people in the community know them, and again, that just goes back to the strategy, and this is all done through the help with law enforcement. Deputy Glasser is out there every day with us when we're working with these people. Here's some of the Wildomar numbers. Again, it's scaled down the same, mental illness, substance abuse, and people in Wildomar identify as Wildomar residents and have been homeless for more than a year. So any questions or questions later? Questions later, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Actually, on time pretty much for once, so that's really good. I'm excited about that. As you could hear through their presentation, those are some incredible stories, and those are only some of them. And we're fortunate to have SWAG as our partner because they do truly care, and we really needed that here in Southwest Riverside County overall. And so far, it's worked. Our partnership has worked. We've been able to get a lot of new clients and build that nonprofit up and support them so that they can do even more to support us. What really is exciting though is that we now have the ability to do even more here in Lake Elsinore and Wildomar and our surrounding county areas, and this really to me demonstrates overall success of everything we've done, and probably one of the best outcomes we could have come to at this point and this stage in our process. And so it's really exciting to be able to brag about it a little bit to all of you. What happened is the governor in June of 2018, recognizing that across our state, cities and counties were struggling with the resources they had to truly make a difference on homelessness, and also recognizing, as Aaron mentioned, the need for that immediate ability to house, to put someone in a house as soon as possible. And so the governor signed into law an homeless emergency aid program, which created $500 million for communities across the state of California. And really that was to provide direct assistance to cities to address the homelessness crisis throughout California. He put a time frame of spending that money by June of 2021. And so he said to all of us is if you want this money, you need to demonstrate your need. And you need to do that by declaring a shelter crisis, which we did here in the city of Lake Elsinore. And you also need to show us that you have a high need population. And immediately we knew here in Lake Elsinore and in the Southwest region that we had a high need. Going back to, we do not have the nonprofits. I'd like to see, and you probably don't know, but we have 0 beds in Southwest Riverside County. 0 government-funded available beds in our area. Yet, we have over or close to almost 30% of the homeless population down here. Obviously, the ability for us to serve and help and put somebody in a house immediately is non-existent. And so we thought, how can we work together and partner? We've worked regionally with Temecula, Murrieta, Menifee, Wildomar, and the county areas for quite some time, probably about 3 years now. And unfortunately, Temecula, Murrieta, and Menifee were not willing to go forward with a shelter crisis declaration, but we knew we needed to continue to go forward and to really try to get this limited one-time funds to truly make a difference for our community and build on our momentum. And so we were 2 of the 3 cities that applied for this funding. Nonprofits did. The county overall got $9 million in what they call HEAP funding, and then we had to apply to the county to get that fund. And again, we were only 2 of 3 cities in Riverside County to be able to get that money. So to us, that's a huge accomplishment. There is a second round coming. There's been some propositions that have passed in the last election that are going to provide additional housing dollars. And this just gives us, again, the ability to go after that funding, show demonstrated success, and hopefully get more to do even more in our communities. So I mentioned that we needed to demonstrate our need, and I think it's really important to understand the situation in which we're working. And I've mentioned some of these already, so I'm not going to go too far in depth, but homelessness is increasing. We all see it every day, and as Aaron mentioned, the folks that we see on our streets are the ones that impact our lives the most. Of course, the at-risk are important. Those that are just newly homeless are very important as well. We want to look into the future and try to find ways to prevent people from becoming homeless, right? Prevent them from having the substance abuse problems, addressing their mental illness sooner so that they don't become homeless. But we also can't ignore the folks that are on our streets that are suffering, but also impacting our businesses, impacting our residents, and really creating some concerns for our communities. We also have homeless individuals that are dying on our streets. We've had 3 here in Lake Elsinore and 1 in Wildomar die in the last 2 years on our streets, and that's not okay either. We have no local beds, as I mentioned, or housing available. We currently have no funding for cities for homelessness. This HEAP money was the first funding source that we saw come down that the cities truly, really felt we could go after and be able to use effectively to make a difference. And particularly here in Lake Elsinore, we do not have the budget or the funds to set aside for homelessness. It's a major challenge, it's a costly one, and even though there's costs that come in every single day, trying to find the funds to do more is difficult. We have a high number of police calls for service related to homelessness and the impacts to our community. It obviously does have negative impacts to our quality of life overall. As I mentioned, minimal service providers, little to no here in Lake Elsinore or even the whole region. Increasing abatement costs, those were the costs for our encampments. And we knew we needed to be able to leverage what limited resources we had, and we needed to try to find ways to remove these barriers. So when we went forward with how do we pursue this funding and what do we propose, we thought we need to throw everything in there. Can we fit everything under this umbrella of what we need? And the state said it really should be a collaborative effort, that you're going to have better success if you're trying to work together with multiple partners. And so we did have that. We went with the City of Wildomar, City of Lake Elsinore, the county areas, Supervisor Jeffrey's office, the Sheriff's Department, and obviously SWAG. And we sat down at a table in a restaurant for 3 hours, right? And went through any and everything. I had a hot dog. It was called, what's it called? Portillo's. It wasn't as good as I thought. Portillo's, I hope you're not listening. But we had a hot dog and we said, what do we do? I mean, we've learned a lot in 2-3 years. What is it that we need? And again, we knew we needed everything. We've started a street outreach team, but we didn't have funding to continue it. The City of Wildomar didn't have funding to continue it. We knew we needed more enforcement. We didn't have enough. At that juncture, it was, in county areas, Lakeland Village is not within the city boundaries. That's not something we can cover as the City of Lake Elsinore. The county areas that surround both of our cities are not something we have any jurisdiction over. But we knew they needed enforcement. The homeless outreach team for law enforcement for Riverside County consists of 2 officers, right? Two full-time deputies for the whole county, all the county areas. So that's not enough, Going back to, as Aaron mentioned, raising that rock bottom, part of that is that enforcement side, making it more difficult for them to be on the street so they start to recognize that help is what they need. And so we knew we needed enforcement. So again, we built this regional, what we were going to call a demonstration effort to really continue what we were doing, but to do more. And how do you house people immediately if you have no housing? That was the big question for us. What could we do to really house folks immediately? We have nowhere to put them. But we also knew from doing street outreach on a regular basis that these folks would say, yeah, if you had a house with a toilet and a shower for me, I go right now, no rules, just take me there, put me there. That's all I need. They would go. They would totally go. But we didn't have that. We don't have that. And so we had to come up with ways to create housing. So again, based on all the needs, we knew we had a high need, underserved area. We knew we were very competitive in being able to go after this funding. And so we really put together a very comprehensive program. And here's all the key pieces of this $1.5 million. This funding is expected to come to us sometimes in August or September. They pay us back as we go, so it's not just going to come sit in a bank account and we all spend it. But these are what we've proposed in our proposal. As we mentioned, homeless street outreach. What's exciting about this, though, and something we've continued to talk about, and the reason why we want to work together regionally, homeless individuals do not know city boundaries. They don't know when they're passing by the Ortega Market that they're no longer in the county and now they're in the city. And they don't know when they're in Wildomar or Lake Elsinore. And they don't care about city boundaries. And so our programs and our efforts can't care about city boundaries. We have individuals that will walk from the county areas into the city during the day and back at night and vice versa. And we can push them away from enforcement side to one part of the city to another city, and that's going to do us no good either. And so what's really exciting about our proposal, and what I'm most excited about, is we can do homeless street outreach across all those areas with the same team, talking to the same people with consistent approach. Those county areas, we've been missing that service, and now we can do it. And that's going to make a huge difference, I think, in really trying to continue to put that pressure on and continue to demonstrate that effort for help. Enforcement. We included a new community services deputy, a full-time for the first year, half-time for the second. And this is going to allow us, again, to have focused enforcement in the county areas, additional enforcement in Wildomar and in Lake Elsinore, and build even stronger team of law enforcement to help us with our street outreach efforts. Housing outreach, we've included a new position, a part-time position that will be here at the city but serving all of our areas, that will be able to help us identify housing opportunities and reaching out to our community, engaging and educating, and again, building on that momentum. So that is huge for us because, right now, unfortunately, I can't do homelessness every day and we don't have dedicated staff, and it takes that dedication, and I think it'll be a great support for our community as well. We've proposed creating what we call a housing database. Going back to the way that cities can support homeless efforts, I truly believe that we have the relationships, we have the connections, we have the ability to find people in our communities that are willing to help. And I believe that there are people out there that want to, and we've talked to some. So we're going to go out to our landlords and our property owners. We're going to ask for their support, and we're going to ask for them to join our efforts by maybe becoming more flexible in their leasing agreements, asking them to maybe reduce the rent so we have a place to put some of these folks. We're going to start to engage them and ask for them to be our partner. Community service providers and developing incentives, this is a big piece too. Eviction protection, maybe improving the property through partners like Habitat for Humanity or HomeAid, finding ways to incentivize our landlords in real ways to be a part of our solution. Housing navigation is huge as well. This is being able to say, okay, this is who we have, this is what they need, this is where they want to go, and we need someone to guide them through that and find where to put them. And really, SWAG is doing that already. That'll be through our nonprofit opportunities. Community outreach, again, across all of our areas, engaging the community, asking them to join in our efforts. And here's the big part. And we have proposed this as a pilot. It may or may not work. And we will see. And we have started to try it here in Lake Elsinore. We've graciously had a landlord here that offers us a property for $1 a month for 6 months. We're able to take a single mom out of Coyote Cove who was living in a tent with 7 children and put her into this home. And we were able to give them a home. He's now allowed her to continue to lease the property, which wasn't what my plan was, but still, she's housed with 6 children, or 7 children? 7 children, I keep getting that wrong, as a single mom, so that's a win to me. But we're looking at housing subsidies, the idea of funding up to 5, potentially 5, properties in our whole area, in our whole region, that would be leased through SWAG or another nonprofit. We basically pay for all the costs associated with that house, maintenance, landscaping, rent. And what these houses can do is they can allow us to take somebody off the street and put them in a house immediately. We can give people the chance that Melissa had, or we can give them that chance to get off the street immediately for a short-term period of time, and we could come in and provide what we call intensive case management and supportive services. So there's a lot of folks in this room that have come and talked to me and shared with me that they want to help. This gives us the opportunity for our community to help. These individuals will be in a place where we know that they are, and we will ask for your help to come out on a regular basis, say hello to Melissa, ask her how she's doing. If she enjoys art, do some art with her. If she enjoys creating jewelry, do some jewelry with her. Churches can join us and take them out to a barbecue or a picnic, an event, and engage, re-socialize them into society. Give them that opportunity. So these houses are more than just a place to house individuals. As Erin mentioned, it's based on the principle of housing first. And housing first is not just putting someone in a house. It's putting them in a home and starting to rebuild their lives through the community and through those connections. And so this will allow us to do this. Obviously, this will be expensive, so a good chunk of that money is going to do this. But we're hopeful we'll find at least 5 landlords. These properties will be well maintained. They'll be throughout the communities. It's going to depend on who offers it up. But one of the things that I challenge our community on a regular basis to recognize is if these homeless individuals in our community on our streets are not housed, where do we think they will go? We have to provide them a way off the streets. If we don't, they will be in our vacant fields. They will be on our business porches. They will be walking our neighborhoods, and they'll be walking the streets at 6 a.m. trying to warm up every day. We can't forget that they can't just disappear, and they can't just go to jail. It's a much larger challenge, and we have to start thinking about where we can send them and how we can help them. Rental assistance is huge as well. So if you think about these folks, these 5 houses, we could put multiple individuals into a house, and we can let them stay there for 30, 60, 120, 150 days. And then what? Rental assistance will allow us to help the people that are at risk, newly homeless, or those in one of these houses, and say, okay, I know there was a woman on our streets who only made $600 a month in Social Security. There's no way she can afford rent here in Lake Elsinore. But what if we can offer her $600 a month to subsidize that additional cost? Now she can get off the street. Now, of course, this is short term. This can't last forever, right? But we have to continue to lift her up, build up her life, and help her find a way out of her situation. And again, a big part of that will be intensive case management. And this is very expensive as well. SWAG might regret offering this service to us. But it's time intensive and it's expensive, but it's very critical in terms of really making a difference in these lives. And of course, we have to do data collection and reporting and all that fun stuff, which Felicia has so graciously offered to do through the City of Wildomar, so we're thankful for that. And there's more to come. What's even more exciting is our partnership with SWAG and our ability to truly try to strive and make a difference and apply real solutions in our communities has lifted them up as well. And so they've been granted $2.7 million of that $9 million. So if you're good at addition, That was 1.5 plus 2.7, so that's 4.2. I'm not, obviously. $4.2 million. That was huge for Southwest Riverside County. $4.2 million is coming to us to make a difference here and actually create resources that we have none of. And we couldn't have done it without all of these partners, so I just can't thank all of them enough. But $1.8 million will be for our first 18 beds in Southwest Riverside County. 18 beds right outside of the city of Paris in the county area. And again, going back to what we're trying to do, imagine if you can put somebody into a motel. There's some money here. You'll see $304,000 for flexible housing subsidies. This is like motel vouchers and a little bit more flexibility in how we apply them. What if you can put someone in a motel? And we have one of our partners here, Esther from the Elsinore Hot Springs. She's been so gracious to offer a very reduced rate and allow us to do that. But if you can put them in a hotel right away, then you find one of those houses that has subsidized housing, and then you find this 18-bed facility for those that need a little bit longer till they're ready for their own place to live, and then you have rental assistance and down payment assistance to allow them to have that home. That's how Housing First works. It's moving them throughout those stages, supporting them along the way, and getting them to that finish line. And so SWAG has gotten that 2.7 to help with encampment response across our area, as well as those flexible housing subsidies and those critical housing beds here in Southwest Riverside County. So how can you help as our community? We've shared a lot of this in the past, so I don't want to go over it too far in depth. One thing I always say, secure and protect your property. People, unfortunately, are on our streets. They're desperate. They need money, and they're going to steal things. So try to protect yourself. It seems like, I've lived in Lake Elsinore since 1989. I used to leave my door unlocked all the time, and my bike in my backyard, and now I don't do that anymore because I'm not home until 8 o'clock at night, and my backyard's free for everybody to go roam if they want to. So just remember that. The world has changed. There's more people. There's more crime. Protect yourself. Don't set yourself up for crime. Do what you can to protect yourself. Maintain your property and the appearance of it. Some of our businesses here don't do as well as they could. That attracts unfavorable crowds. Take pride in where you live and try and raise up the entire community. Practice responsible compassion. This is a huge one, everyone. And this is where, again, the community has to work together, rowing in the same direction. Responsible compassion means give a hand up, not a hand out. Panhandlers, we're not helping them when we give them $1. We're not helping them when we give them $5. What you can do is take that money, give it to SWAG. Let them use that for the people that are actually ready for help, that need sheets for a bed, or need food because they've been starving and they're getting ready to take them to detox or substance abuse. Let that money go to those that really need the help. We can use all the money we can get because it's costly, right? And so I just encourage our community to think twice about how you give and how you think you're really lifting up those in need. Because there's so many nonprofits out there, not just SWAG, so many that are doing so many great things to help these folks, and they need your support. They truly do. And believe me, if you give to the panhandlers, they're going to be right back there tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And that's why we see Melissa at Lowe's over and over and over again, because we're sustaining her lifestyle. We're not lifting that rock bottom. We're allowing her to continue to live that lifestyle where she says, no, I'm okay. I don't need a house. I'm good. I don't need help. I'm good. Don't let them continue to feel like they're okay. They need a little pressure to want to get off the street. And we're here to help. We have the resources. We're trying to help them. So reporting is really important. We've talked about this, but please report when you see somebody in our community. That's how we know who's out there. That's where we know where to go. Sign up as an interested landlord or property owner if you know others. Spread the word is really important too. Help share this information with our community. Be our advocates and support our efforts. And of course, you can volunteer for what I'm calling supportive services. But again, once we have these folks in homes that need that ongoing support, we'd love for you to come out and just have a cup of coffee with them in the morning. They need that, and that's how you can truly help. When I talk about reporting, there's 3 different ways you should do this. We mentioned our AlertLE app. You can get this on the App Store. You can also access it on Facebook or on our website. It's very simple to use. You should use this for anything in our city. I always tell everybody, I wish I had time to look at what's up Lake Elsinore every day. I know Bridget, Natasha, Steve Manos, they all think they can and they try really, really hard. But let me tell you, if you go through 500 comments, you forgot what 456 said. So I appreciate the dialogue, and it's important. But the way we can make better decisions is through data and through using real platforms like this that allow us to say, what are the needs of our community? So I encourage you to use this app for anything in our community and really help us better serve you. Police non-emergency dispatch number, I hope that's the right number. Yeah? I, for some reason, have 2 different ones and I mix them up. But the non-emergency dispatch number is perfect for anything related to homelessness. We actually urge you to do both, AlertLE and non-emergency. Non-emergency allows PD to know about it. They keep their own data. They use that data to determine where they have patrol and where they put their efforts, just like we can in the city. So again, use these platforms, because when you post it on What's Up Lake Elsinore, I don't even see it. And I know Natasha does sometimes, but that doesn't mean that we're going to get to it right away. Use the right realms to do that. And then emergency, you can always dial 911. Obviously, this is if someone's aggressive, they're being threatening to you in our community, then you definitely should be dialing 911. But believe me, calling 911 for trespassing, loitering, panhandling, you're not going to get a better response. So call the non-emergency line instead. So in terms of what we've seen in our community, it's a little bit difficult for those in the room to see, but we've had, I thought this was crazy, 999 reports in AlertLE since June of 2017 when we started using this for homeless concerns. And you can see our key areas, Riverside Drive, we have about 300 reports over on Riverside Drive. We know that's one of our #1 areas. The lake bottom areas are definitely a challenge for us. We have about 200 in the central Dexter Avenue area. We have some flood channels over there. There's some great places for folks to, so a lot of vacant land for folks to go into. So we definitely also know that as one of our second hot spots. 165 downtown. Also another place that's popular with our homeless. And then over by Summer Hill, Railroad Canyon Road, this is probably about 150, it looks more like 180. And that's really the folks hiding under a lot of those bridges, under the freeways. Those are a good place for them to go and seek shelter. And then you can see there's sporadically other places in our community. But when you lump them together, we can drill in further and closer and see these numbers, and we can drill out bigger and see them more broadly. But you know, when we did our business outreach meeting, we looked at this. We looked at this map and said, okay, what businesses do we start with in targeting and trying to ask them to be our partners? So again, this helps us when we're trying to come up with strategies from all aspects when you report the information. So with that, I was 5 minutes over. Darn it. But that concludes what we had to say today. I'm going to invite up our councilwoman, Natasha Johnson, as well as Wildomar's councilwoman, Bridget Moore, to just give some closing comments if they like, and then to obviously open up for all of your questions. And again, I thank you. Thank you for being here, or thank you for listening to us at home.
Ready to go? You want to close? Okay. Well, you can go first, and I'll wrap and then do questions about that.
So, my name is Bridget Moore from the City of Wildomar. I definitely want to thank the City of Lake Elsinore. Thank you so much for bringing us in. As we all know, we have so much common school district, common water service, and our border. So, if you're going down Mission Trail, one half's Elsinore, one half's Wildomar. Going down Corridon, one half. So, and as we said, that the individuals experiencing homelessness are migratory, so they can go between our 2 cities all day long. So thank you so much for bringing us on board. I definitely agree with Nicole was saying about the first time about hearing about swag. So I think you remember you guys came to council, Wildomar City Council. I was blown away, and I was like, I'm on board. Whatever you need, I will help you. I think I've demonstrated that. I know swag is the answer for Wildomar, and so I'm totally on board with supporting you. Example tonight, I was supposed to be at another event, and the mayor asked me to come here, so I'm on a board, well, not a board, a member of 100 Women Who Care, and they meet once a quarter, and so the last quarter, we were able to get swag as a recipient, so they received about $5,000, and tonight they were going back, so I think Monica's there to give the report on that. Our city has also, Pine Nation did a fundraiser for swag. Stater Brothers, I think you received a check. They did like a grand reopening, and they donated a check to swag. And then the mayor, we have Wildomar Night at the Storm Stadium every year, and it's mayor's choice, and the mayor chose all the proceeds from that event to go to swag. So we don't have Lake Elsinore Alert, like you, the app like you, but we do have a website. So you can go to citywildomar.org, go to, click on what do I want to do? You want to do a report, code violation, put in your information, and that goes to our code enforcement officer. So you can still report online. Besides the Facebook post, there's another option. So great information tonight. I think this is, I didn't know we were 2 or 3 cities, so that was kind of shocking, but really, really nice. So thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Natasha Johnson. Thank you all for coming. We're going to keep this part to you. I'm not going to speak very much. A lot's been said tonight. I just have a couple of, Desmond, come in. Come back. There's Desmond. I just have a couple of reminders for the community. One of the things as we were prepping for this meeting today, we were talking about the community outreach, and one of the things I told to the team was, if people are making time to come here and learn about what we're doing, what's happening, what they can do, then we really need to give them some things that they can do, because you don't need to come to a meeting and just hear the story, which was fantastic. I mean, it was really great to hear the enforcement and what that journey looks like. It was great to hear where swag's at. It was great to hear how all the successes, but we still have a lot of challenges. And those challenges are not easy to overcome. And yes, we have some fantastic strides in gaining funding to address homelessness, but it is going to be something that can't just be solved with funds. It has to be solved by the community, and it has to be a collaboration of our community. And so I want to encourage you to do a few things, and those few things are, support businesses that are supporting themselves in enforcement. We have a lot of businesses in our communities, Wildomar, Lake Elsinore, and our county areas, that don't have active 602s on file, which means if they have an issue that the law enforcement can't enforce there. Those are not the kind of businesses I'm going to patron, because we have to help ourselves, and we can't expect to call our police officers every time there's a problem if we're not willing to put that enforcement in place. So the Councilmember Tisdale and I, and I'm sure my colleagues in Wildomar, we're going to reach out to the business community one last time and a last-ditch effort to say, please help us help you. And if that doesn't work, then we'll be happy to list those businesses that aren't willing to work with us. So stay tuned for that. And then additionally, the Alert LE and the website and the phone numbers, that's not just something we're encouraging you to do. We really need you to do that. Part of the reason we were able to get the HEAP funding was because we were able to identify areas on the Alert LE. But when you think about it, let's think about total square miles, unincorporated area, Wildomar and Lake Elsinore. Lake Elsinore itself is 44 square miles. So you mean to tell me in over a year and a half, we only had 900 instances, almost 1,000 instances of reports? I know for a fact I get more reports on Facebook than that. So we really have to utilize those tools, because I don't document every time somebody tags me in a Facebook post, but I know that our city team, our law enforcement team, SWAG, and our partners can pull up our heat map, and they can show that these are where the issues are, and we can start to build a case, because as you heard tonight, it's really a journey. There's no one answer, one interaction, and there's really not an all-encompassing answer. So it really goes back to enforcement, engagement, and education, and we're going to work hard, but we have to have a no tolerance policy. and we're going to continue to do that. So I loved hearing from our law enforcement team, new direction is coming. I know that there's been it's been difficult because while we want to do outreach, we've given them time now for the outreach to happen, and now it's time to hold them accountable. So we have to take people to jail. We want to give them opportunity, but we have to take them to jail if they're not going to abide by the rules. And that's not because we're not compassionate, but it's because we care and we want them to change their story. So it's time to do that. So with that, we're going to open up to questions, and we want to hear what you have to say. All my colleagues took the easy part and left me up here for questions. So I'm ready to do that. Yes.
So I have a question about, when you have homeless are counted, how do you assure that the people are not being counted more than once? Because there was two screens up there. One said that we had 74 homeless people, and then another screen said that there was a homeless assessment of 121.
Okay, that's a great question. Let me clarify a few things before I answer it, and I may need the team to help me a little bit more with like the specifics, but the point in time count is just something we participate in is for the county. I can tell you I've participated personally for the last 4 years, and I know for a fact that that number is not an all-inclusive number of the homeless people we have in our community. In all fairness, most of the time they know we're coming. They know that the point in time count is happening. They scatter all over the place to wherever, because they don't really, either they don't want the interaction, they're nervous about it, or, they just really, they are choosing this lifestyle and they don't want to be bothered. So those that we do count, they're entered onto a system that the county uses and the government agencies can use. But the City of Lake Elsinore, City of Wildomar, and our partnership and our homeless task force, we've created our own system as well, so that when we interact with someone, that we have a list of when we interacted, what services were offered, what we're doing. And so we're doing that, well, not manually, it's system-based, but we're doing it as well as what we're doing for the county. SPDAT, is that correct?
No, well, we have different ways. There's many things you have to enter, but SWAG fortunately has been creating an assessment tool for us, and really that does protect us legally, because there are some laws in place from the state and federal government that have said, hey, if you offer help, then you can enforce, but if you haven't offered this individual help, then you shouldn't be enforcing on them, you should be helping them. And so this does protect us legally in saying, hey, yeah, we've talked to John 5 times, we've asked John to get help 5 times, and he said no. So that's one of the reasons why we have our own list through law enforcement and SWAG, and that number is higher than the point time count.
Yeah, and also, it's just a wrap to that, Nicole brings up a great point. Once they're put in our system as being made contact with, we then have enforcement rights. So if, let's say they're sleeping on the beach, and the beach is closed at 10 p.m. Unless we have that contact that, yes, we've made contact and we've offered services, unfortunately, there's nothing that our law enforcement can do. So that's very important, it's vital, and that's based on new legislation, so we're working through those challenges as well. That's a great question.
Questions?
Yes.
Wouldn't that then make your first contact? If they're sleeping on the beach and there's nothing you can do, can't that be your first point of contact?
It is, but unfortunately, you can't enforce anything on your first contact.
But it's a start.
No, it is absolutely a first start, and that's where we're starting. But legislation makes it very challenging because people don't want to wait for another contact. They want you to handle it now.
But it's a good reason, again, to report so that we can go out there and create that contact.
Yeah.
Is there a long-term funding commitment or funding strategy on behalf of the cities to continue these initiatives after June of 2021?
That's a good question. I'll speak for Lake Elsinore, and then you can go for Wildomar. No, the answer is no. There's not a long-term commitment. I mean, our commitment is, I think, displayed in our ability to quickly act. What we had in place as a task force and a collaboration was the vital component in success in getting the HEAP funding awarded to our area. If we hadn't started with the task force, we hadn't done those things, we wouldn't have those funds today. I don't know that money will be available again. We're pretty much given the pretense that it's one-time money. So I think the commitment becomes you need to find a way to fund these going forward. And I think if we're looking, further out as a city, this is not something that we want to budget ongoing, but we realize that it's a need in California and it's not going away, so we're going to do what we can, but that's going to fall on the backs of the taxpayers. And that's where I think we have the challenge is, how do you balance that to your taxpayers to say that this is a budgeted item every year?
Can I add to that really quickly?
Yeah.
Just I'll mention, as I shared, lifting up nonprofits like SWAG or others, that I think can give us a lot of opportunity in the future as well, where the city doesn't have to fund as much. That's the hope in supporting our nonprofit partners. But also, again, as we demonstrate and hopefully demonstrate success here, we can go after additional funding, but again, partnering and supporting the nonprofits, we can help them get grants and help them get funding and be their partner in that way.
So Wildomar will have some funding. It won't be anything near the numbers that you saw on the screen. We did just pass Measure AA. It's a 1 cent sales tax, and it just started April 1st. But the 1 cent sales tax is being divided up between police, fire, roads, and homeless. So it'll be a portion of that 1 cent. So there is some funding there, but not the numbers that you saw up there.
As a member of the faith-based community, I know, and maybe Deputy Glasser can address this because he's the one that mentioned it. I was curious as to how and why maybe the faith-based community, I don't know, I don't think you used the word failed, but it wasn't as successful. Curious as to why, and as a follow-up, what could be done better by churches in this city to help give that hand up?
I'm going to let Deputy Glasser jump in 2 seconds. So if you guys remember, anybody in here remember Cops and Clergy? Yeah, okay, yeah, some of our folks do. So it was more of a collaboration of our faith-based groups and organizing and trying to address different things such as homelessness. One of the challenge and why that was disbanded, at least from what, everyone has going to have opinion about what the demise was, but really it became a little bit more of a political climate and faith-based groups wanting to do a little bit something different. Every faith-based group or church or organization kind of had a mission or a unique mission and how they felt like they were going to serve. And the problem was, instead of just organizing and creating a greater impact with that collaboration, everybody wanted to do their own thing and they couldn't agree on what was happening. So really that was our challenge with Cops and Clergy. We feel like the Homeless Task Force is the reintegration back into that. We want you back because now we have this foundation of where we're going, and we want to invite you back because we know it's a valuable resource and tool, and we know that there's a need to serve, but we have to do it with an organized approach because everybody's just doing their own thing and we were getting nothing done. So I don't know, do you have something else?
Just to reiterate what Councilmember Johnson just said, that's pretty much what it was, is that we couldn't be on the same page. We wanted to go one direction, one church wanted to go to another, and it just kind of, everyone still wanted to do their own thing rather than come together as a team. And we still invite you guys to come back. We want to work with you. We don't have all the answers, and I think we've said that multiple times. We don't have all the answers. And you might be able to provide something that we can't provide or we haven't thought of. And we're always open to having anybody from the faith-based community come in and work with us, but just as long as we all have the same goal and understand the same mission and work it the same way.
And I'll just add really quickly to that. So one of the things that we found is when we really started going, we started doing these meetings, we were talking a lot about ideas and options and opportunities, but again, we didn't have that foundation. We didn't have homeless individuals that we could actually go give to. So with this grant funding and having these folks housed, we can actually do that now. I know in Temecula, one of the churches, for example, has a new home kit that they've started to create, and they give those to folks when they get a new home. So once we can put somebody into a house, they need everything. Plates, sheets, clothes, towels, it's like getting married or something. So there's ways that our churches can support us in that way by providing those supplies. It could be gift cards to Target. And so I just encourage our faith-based community to think in that way and bring those ideas forward to us, because now we have the ability to do that.
As a quick follow-up too, I was thinking, do you foresee churches playing a part in the housing program as far as providing emergency shelter on a very temporary basis, of course, but nothing long-term? But do you see churches participating in that by opening up their doors, their, whatever you want to call them, sanctuaries or whatever else, to emergency house in any way? I know this is.
I think it's definitely a conversation. If that's something that your church is willing to do, we definitely would welcome that. It's something that there's not an appetite or temperature for currently right now in our faith-based community. If we had it, we'd be utilizing it. It's not there, so maybe we can talk offline. There has to be just a systematic approach to it, though. So that's why this collaboration of as long as compassionate care is there, and that's the basis for it, I think it's fantastic. Thank you.
I don't really have like a question, but it's more of, there is a website, Care Portal, where faith-based organizations are allowed to utilize and provide, say a family is in need of bunk beds, faith-based organizations can go on this website and donate to what other families are requesting. So there is some steps and ways that faith-based organizations can help. careportal.com, I think.
Careportal.com. If you Google it, I'm sure it'll come up.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'll mention another site too, justserve.org. Justserve.org, that's another site that you can use for community building, fundraising, volunteerism, those sorts of things for our community.
I'm liking the things that I'm hearing. I'm seeing some real progress potentially being made. Funding, of course, ongoing funding is a concern. But as we continue to do a better and better job, is there a concern that we will attract more and more homeless from other areas looking for those services?
Yeah, it's always, we hear this question a lot, actually. You want to go or I'll go? Okay. Okay. So, I think, yes, if you perfect something that works, you're going to look to be the model. I will tell you it from the regional perspective, the regional task force. It's not news, and for those of my colleagues up the I-15 corridor that are watching, we're making some other cities nervous as far as our enforcement, or how aggressive we were, or what we were doing, and kind of how we were pushing the envelope for compassionate care. So yeah, you're gonna have to do that, and I think it's something you're just gonna have to be mindful of, but we're not gonna stop looking to ways to successfully do this, because maybe the threat of attracting more homeless people, because the climate will be different, right? If we don't tolerate homelessness, then that's the climate that changes here. So if you want to come here, right now we're dealing with chronic homeless in Lake Elsinore. These are people that have been here a really long time. They don't really typically want the help, or guess what? They lived here or grew up here, or they have family here. Or Wildomar County, that's why they're here. We hear often there's a white bus that dropped off, or a white van that dropped off homeless people, and we know they're coming to Lake Elsinore because, it's easy here. It's not easy here. But we do hear those reports, and we do have challenges. We have some nonprofits that actually do drop off some folks that come here because they have a location here, and so there are nuances to all of this. But no, we can't worry about doing it right and attracting more people, because we have to go about it the right way.
Just talk about funding standpoint, because if you're doing a good job, more people are coming, it's going to take more funding to support those people.
So let me help you out a little bit. I sit on a couple of the committees with the county. I work for the 3rd district supervisor, and so one of the challenges we have is the county actually has a plan. It's not a very good one, and I'm not quite sure they clearly understand the issues that we're involved in. And so, like, for example, the city of Wildomar has a shelter, and they're being dumped on. And this is the reason why cities don't get into this business, because if you're the one out there trying to do the work, what happens? You get dumped on, because everybody else says, we're going to be a partner with you, and then they're not a partner. I'm a little ticked off at some of our neighbors that are in our alliance that didn't do the declaration, because in that partnership, it would allow us to share some of the money with them. So we're calling those folks out, and we're not going to let other cities dump on us, other counties dump on us, or anybody else dump on us. But, and one of the reasons that we're doing some of the things that we're doing is because of the procedures that are in place right now. So for example, if we help the county find houses, then they're going to send people from the desert or anywhere else where they need them. Well, we're not going to participate in that, because we want to solve our own problem. We don't want to solve another city's problems. So we're trying to work together. We're trying to bring start with our region, the Southwest region, and bring everyone together so that we're all on the same program. And we've done some of that by having the same rules. For example, we all did shopping cart ordinances and some of the other things. And so that will allow people that come in our area know that they can't just go to Wildomar and the situation's different, or to Menifee or to Temecula. So we're trying to all work together. But that is a big concern with people coming. If we do a good job, then all of a sudden we're it. We're not going to open up a shelter in Lake Elsinore. If we open up houses, these will be houses that will be controlled by us, for us, not for anybody else. And so, and I just want to touch on the question on the continued funding. So we're doing a good job. We're going to always seek. So the answer isn't really a no, we're not going to do funding, continue funding. The answer is we're going to always go after money because the homeless problem is not going to go away. And we're going to do what we have to do, because if there's a problem here, the people that are sitting here are impacted if we do nothing. The cost of letting someone roam on the street is going to hurt us. It costs our police, it costs our fire, it costs everybody. So if we have to take taxpayer dollars to solve a problem, we'll do that. And I'm willing to take that risk politically, because if we're not solving problems, what are we doing? Right? So hopefully that answered your question.
I just want to add 3 key points. First, he meant City of Riverside has a shelter, not City of Wildomar. He said Wildomar, right? Just want to make sure everybody knew that. City of Riverside. There's only 2 shelters in Riverside County, really, Coachella Valley and City of Riverside. And it's not city, it's Path of Life. I lost my brain for a second, sorry. And so that's a huge challenge for our whole county, is not having shelter. But we also know that shelters really don't work because of the reasons that Brian mentioned. Number 2 is I just want to mention one of the things that I asked SWAG, and one of the reasons we had the percentage of Elsinore residents that are on our street is because of this concern and this idea that folks are just coming into Lake Elsinore. And as you saw, a majority are from here, are connected to here, their family members are here, so there's a reason they're here. That doesn't mean that there aren't. And so I said, what about that other 25-30%? And this is what SWAG says. And again, they're all across our region. So this is very important for our community, because we pay better out here. What do I mean by pay better?
Yeah.
Panhandling. So. I have sat in Temecula and watched dollar after dollar after dollar after dollar. We give too much here. We care too much here. And so I actually think that's a larger challenge than us coming up with services to help. Our community, again, has to support our effort. We have to raise rock bottom. And one of the ways we do that is we decrease their pay by not giving them money and by not allowing them to steal our stuff. Right?
So I'm gonna see if we have any other questions. If not, do we have any more questions? These were really good questions tonight. If you're at home and you have questions, you can send them to us. Yeah, and we will make sure we respond to all the questions, because we know there's folks watching at home. No more questions? Okay. So I want to end on a quick story, a personal story, and I think Sergeant Warrington's gone, but he was in here earlier, and it's going to just drive home the point that Nicole just made and that we've talked about a few times. Compassionate care means exactly that, and today you'll be able to find on our website and our Facebook what compassionate care really looks like. We also have these really great posters for businesses, and we want them to put them up. We want to know what businesses are supporting the non-panhandling, because that is very helpful. So I, in my day job, work for a local credit union in the Costco shopping center. I won't name the credit union, but you all know what it is. And so I am in the Costco shopping center in the Lowe's parking lot every day, multiple hours a week. And I know some of our folks that were on this slide tonight. But I'll tell you, we kept having this problem with one particular lady that had, she had a stroller and her young children with her, and she was standing by my ATM asking all of my patrons for money, right? Over and over and over. And so finally I just went out there and I said, you got to move on. I'm sorry you can't be here. You need to move on. You can't ask people for money. And so she kind of moved to the corner and she continued to do it. So I called the non-emergency line, and I called. And Sergeant Warrington happened to be over at the Coffee Bean. And so he came on over and he had a conversation with her. And, it was really important that he had this conversation, because she gave us a really great insight into our community especially in that day. It was about 2:00. She is from Riverside with her 2 young children, and in the 4 hours she had been in our parking lot, she had made $662. I don't know about you, but I have a great job, and I don't make that. So I really want to drive that home, that the panhandling is a significant problem. It's not everything, but it is definitely a significant problem. And, you know, showing you care, that $1 or that $5, that $10 isn't the way we're going to show how we care. We can care in other ways. And you've seen today what care really looks like. And that care looks like, let's meet you where you are, let's figure out what you need, and let's get you the real help you need. And so I would really recommend that you keep your hard-earned dollars to yourself and help in other ways. If you want to help, support a great organization like SWAG. So with that, thank you for coming. We appreciate you being here. You guys have a good night.